Executive Platinum, Emerald, Sapphire.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Crew Travel right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host, and I'm very pleased to welcome back my co-host, the recovered Lee Harris, because there is no other descriptive word for you this week. How are you?
It's not. Yeah. I'm a lot better than last week, that's for sure. Yes, slightly poorly last week, so I do apologise for not being here. But yeah, all recovered and raring to go on Valentine's Day. So yeah, we're good to go.
Yeah, well, I know I woke up on Monday morning to a message at 4 a.m. saying, I'm not doing the show. And then we thought maybe, 24 hours and you'd be all right. And that wasn't the case either. So, but we're glad you're with us this week. I've got to say, it's the first week. And a lot of people wrote in, a lot of people were like, where's Crew Travel? What's going on? Because people have sort of come to expect it every week. And even though, and it just goes to show, even though I put out messages that, one of the hosts was ill, people didn't read it.
No, it's too easy.
Yeah, why don't you just inbox me a million times so I have to repeat the message that I've already put out all across my social media a million times. That's great. Thank you.
Just blame me for it because I wasn't here. So that's all my fault. So I do apologize.
It is the first time in 2.5 years almost.
I know. I don't tend to get sick. So clearly, it's just one of those things. But we're all good. We're all back. We're all fine. Yeah. So it's all good.
Well, even if I'm sick, I do it anyway. So
You are woman, I am man. We know this. We know what men do.
You had man flu. It's a good thing it's not catching. I'd be in trouble.
It is.
I have to mention that Crew Travel is brought to you by Blue Marine Travel, who haven't lost a passenger since Lee Harris recovered. Ever. Yeah, of course, our people move people.
We do indeed.
Good job at it too. So this week, there's actually, it's changing. The travel atmosphere is changing. It's getting a lot lighter. And that's a great news. But I have a fear that we're going to see some changes in the Eastern Med, sort of Ukraine area coming up shortly. But we won't go into that this week.
That's very political, isn't it? I know we like a little bit of political chat, but that's probably way above my head, in all honesty.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact is there's troops bordering up, and the Canadian embassy is calling back all their people, and so are other embassies. So, we'll wait to see. I said to somebody the other day, I said, I wouldn't worry, but the Russians really like yachting.
True, very true.
They're going to wait till the season's over anyway, right?
That's right, yeah.
Gosh, how would this super uber rich in Russia deal with not being able to sail the Med throughout the summertime?
Wouldn't be fun for them, would it? No, it'd be all hell to pay, I'm sure.
See, I can be funny politically.
You can. It just goes off my head, honestly. I am probably the least political person I know.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, I'm stuck on social media all the time, so I see all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's annoying. Anyways, let's get to the great news. France has some restrictions being lifted.
Yeah, they do indeed. Yeah, so fully vaccinated travellers from the United Kingdom will no longer be required to undergo pre-entry testing when travelling to France, as the latter's authorities have decided to lift this requirement. The news was announced by the Consul General of France in London. So as of February 12th, travellers from the UK can enter France without having to present a negative test result taken before arrival. That's provided they have completed their primary vaccination. Until now, travellers from the UK had been required to present a negative COVID-19 test result taken within 48 hours before arrival in France. This requirement applied to everyone, even to fully vaccinated travellers. However, in line with the new changes, they no longer are required to follow this requirement. In addition, British travellers will also no longer have to undergo testing before returning back to the UK. That's because UK authorities ended the testing requirement for vaccinated travellers on February the 11th.
Let me ask you a quick question. It's not something we were going to talk about today, but Spain, I saw something come across social media the other day that they were requiring British travelers into Spain, children, to have double vaccination status or they couldn't get in. Do you know anything about that?
I believe they've gone back on it. I haven't read it completely, but I did see something come through today saying that I believe that the Spanish government have gone back on their requirement for children to be fully vaccinated. But I'll do some digging. I can find out and I'll stick it on LinkedIn.
Perfect, perfect. Now, Bermuda has some good news.
They do, yeah. They've updated their COVID-19 protocols. So new ones are being introduced by Bermuda as the island nation aims to streamline the process for vaccinated traveller arrivals. The revised guidelines from March the 7th will continue to ensure the safety of all residents and visitors while making it even more easier for tourists, this according to the Bermuda Tourism Authority. Bermuda's new guidelines will require all visitors to show proof of current vaccination status and a negative COVID-19 test result. This can be either antigen or PCR within 2 days of arriving onto the island. So under the new protocols, travellers will need to complete a traveller authorisation form with the information 24 to 48 hours prior to arrival. They'd need up-to-date vaccination status, which is defined as having received a second dose within 6 months or 3 doses of the vaccine. And also no further testing will be required upon arrival. Now, if the country of origin that you're coming from requires a test to return, Bermuda will automatically schedule and provide return testing to all travellers.
I just pulled a Lee there, had a sip of tea. Well, yeah, I did.
Yeah, you
So
did.
unprofessional.
Terrible.
The great news coming out of Australia is, of course, the border lifting is, they're now finally, after 2 years, starting to have more freedom at the border and the restrictions are lifting. And as a result, what's going on with Qantas?
Yeah, so with Australia announcing this week that it will reopen to fully vaccinated foreign visitors on February the 21st, so not long at all, Australian national carrier Qantas is planning to resume 6 overseas routes that have been suspended since the start of the pandemic. To coincide with the policy change, Qantas announced this week that it will soon relaunch multiple overseas routes that were popular in pre-pandemic times. These being from February 16th, their Sydney to Dallas flight. From March the 27th, it'll be Brisbane to Singapore, Sydney to Manila, and Sydney to Jakarta. From March the 28th, they're going to reinstate the Sydney to Denpasar in Bali, and from April the 1st, the Brisbane to Los Angeles flight.
Nice. Well, it just seems, the funny thing is, I don't think you sometimes realize how essential some of these flights are, because it might just be 6 routes, but when you take a look at sort of the connecting flights around the world and how it all works, 6 routes down has such a knock-on effect throughout the rest of the world.
Exactly right. I mean, just those 6, 2 of them are into the US. So if you take on board, the Caribbean season, that's 2 flights into the US that can then connect onto the Caribbean. So that's a big jump for Australian crew who need to get there. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that should make things a little bit easier for them.
Good, good. And Emirates, what's going on there?
Yeah, so this is still with regards to Australia, actually. So Emirates will add a second daily A380 flight onto its Sydney-Dubai route from March the 1st. It means the airline will offer customers an additional 7 flights per week to reach 14 weekly services from Dubai to the capital of New South Wales. The carrier have said it's increasing services to meet demand. As we previously mentioned, Australia is set to reopen its borders. The upgrade to the double-decker aircraft allows 50% additional capacity to serve anticipated demand arising from the reopening of the borders. Emirates also provides passenger services to Brisbane with 5 weekly flights, as well as 3 flights per week to Perth, both with a Boeing 777 aircraft.
Nice. And Finland has some news.
Yep, so starting from February 15th, nationals from third countries are exempted from presenting COVID-19 test results to enter Finland, the authorities have revealed. According to a press release issued by the Ministry of Internal Security and Immigration, restrictions on the entry of external borders will be abolished on March the 13th. However, arrivals are required to present a vaccination certificate valid for 6 months from travelling time. In addition, all travellers over 16 years old who are holders of a recovery certificate or a negative test result form 72 hours before departure are still permitted to enter Finland.
It just really sounds like things are easing up.
It does at the moment, touch wood. There's not a lot of bad news, and I've now cursed it, haven't I? But there doesn't appear to be. Most countries seem to be taking some sort of unilateral approach to, removing most restrictions in place with regards to borders. Even New Zealand 2 weeks ago, we would have talked about it last week, but obviously me not being here, we couldn't, but they've now put a 5-step approach into opening their borders. So I think by October this year, everybody should be able to come back in as long as they're vaccinated. So, you know, even the hardest places that have really sort of dug their heels in during COVID now do appear to be opening up as well.
By October?
October for fully vaccinated people, for travelers who are not on the visa waiver schedule the system. So countries like South Africa, so if South Africans want to come into New Zealand, they'll be able to by October. I think it's July for people on the visa waiver program, so that'll be like the US, the UK, Canada, Europe. So travelers then will be able to come in from July. Like I said, it's a 5-step approach. So yeah, but
I guess it depends
at least.
Sorry.
At least there's a plan in place now, because I think that was my biggest bugbear with regards to New Zealand. It was almost like there wasn't anything in place. Or okay, October maybe slightly pushing it a little bit, you know, far in advance, but at least there is now something in place that people can work towards to you know, be able to enter New Zealand, or even for people like myself who need to leave to go to work and stuff, you know, and do work in other countries. That at least now we can put in place procedures and stuff to you know, to know, right, okay, Flibs, there's a chance that we can go to that now, whereas the last 2 years we've not been able to. So yeah, it's good news.
I guess it really depends on which country has the best sort of record of dealing with the virus, et cetera, and those are the ones that they'll let in first. I mean, it makes sense, but it's taken 2 years for the world to get on the same page almost. And it's you think, wow, that's amazing, and you expect me to get, you know, my life together in 50. I mean, it's not happening.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, it has taken a long time for us to get to this point, and hopefully, fingers crossed, there's not going to be more road bumps or any setbacks. They all seem to be quite set that this is now what's going to be happening. So yeah, let's hold our breath, keep our fingers crossed, and knock on wood, shall we say?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the med season, we really want to see that heat up, that's for sure. And you've got a crew question this week.
We did, yeah. We received a question this week from Paul asking whether there was any updated news on when Aer Lingus would reinstate their popular Dublin-Miami direct flight. For anyone that wasn't aware, the direct flight had been put on hiatus back in March 2020 when the COVID pandemic took hold. Now, there is good news, Paul. However, it's a little way in the future, but Aer Lingus have announced a restart of the popular route from October the 21st. The route will resume with 2 weekly flights on a Friday and a Sunday, with a further 3rd flight added on Wednesday from October the 29th. Unfortunately, it's probably not the news you wanted to hear because it's still way out in the future, but at least there is a time frame in place.
True that. Well, Lee, I have to say it's been a pleasure having. I missed our chat. You know, I mean, we always have this great chat. To the audience out there, we always have this great chat for, you know, 20 minutes beforehand and 20 minutes after, because I have no friends, and I tell Lee my entire life story.
I am Ria's therapist.
You are, and I missed my therapy session last week, and you should have seen the mess I was this week. It's just crazy.
I do apologize. I won't leave you in the lurch again.
You better not. Unbelievable. Anyways, no, I'm glad you're all recovered, and that, you know, it's great because you were sick for a week and you come back with all good news. So
there we go.
You know, maybe the world is hoping that you're sick more often.
Maybe that's what it is. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, clearly it's what he wants.
Wonderful. Lee, I have to say that Crew Travel is brought to you by Blue Marine Travel, who haven't lost a passenger since Lee Harris was born back in the late 1900s, and their people move people.
You do indeed.
Thank you, Lee. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for all the great news.
Always a pleasure, and yeah, look forward to seeing you next week.
Wonderful. You've been watching another edition of Crew Travel right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I have been your host. We'll see you again next week.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we're boarding passengers seated in zones E and F at this time.